Patriots Playbook. Here's your host, John Rook. Legend. Voice of the New England Patriots. First down. It's Patriots Playbook. La, la, la.
And we're here.
That may be the funniest thing that's happened all year. So, first thing I have to say is, how come we haven't heard that version before? Do you made that's brand new
for this show, and I was all
Love
excited
it.
for it.
That's awesome.
He got so excited that he forgot to plug the mics in.
Really did. I set the entire box up except for the microphone part.
Oh my God, that's funny. That's absolutely funny. He's so into the creative part. Marine is so into in which we appreciate, because this is, it's cool. This it can be a grind, as we all know around here, especially around these times. So we try to do something different every show and try to spice things up. And so he's all geeked about putting together a new open, and forgot to plug his in.
I mean, that's why we love him, though, right? Because he's just, his priorities
I knew exactly
are
perfect. He does it all. He does this, he does that, he shoots terrorists. I mean, come on.
Yeah, we had a really great conversation before we hit record about.
Now this is the problem, right? The problem here is that the best stuff takes place before we go on the air.
I can't even say because it was about Marine, his bathroom time while
in Afghanistan,
in the Marines
Yeah.
in Afghanistan,
Right.
and let me just tell you, it was. I can't repeat it. It's not safe for air.
I would it would not be definitely NSFW, right?
Yeah.
But actually, he kind of raised my eyebrow, and I was a Boy Scout, so I'm used to digging latrines and doing things like that back in the day, and I'm kind of like, whoa, I never did that, so I got to give him a little credit where that's concerned, right?
You do. I
don't even know what to say because I don't want to say
I
anything.
don't even know what to say either.
Oh my goodness!
I'm stuck. For once in my life, I got nothing.
I think that's probably...
Don't play with fire, people.
Yeah, no, that's probably a good idea. All right, welcome into the Playbook. We love to digress to begin the program. I'm John. That's Evan. Maddie Glab, who is the multimedia beat reporter, if you will, for the Buffalo Bills. She's going to join us at the top of the second hour, right, Maureen? Yeah, okay. And then Doug Kyde from the Boston Herald will join us at the bottom of hour two. At 3:30, okay. Very good. And then Russell Baxter will be along as well. A lot of things to get off to, at least here to begin with, and not the least of which is that, the persistent chatter, concerning Gerard, concerning the coaching staff, concerning the direction of the team and the program based on, what transpired this last week against Arizona, and the shot of, from the television cameras of ownership sitting in the box and saying things and taking notes and yada, yada. I mean, look, you can really glean out of this any number of things, okay? Fact of the matter is that I got to stick with my original premise, which we've probably been talking about now for 6 to 8 weeks at the very least now.
Yeah.
Is that I don't think Gerard's going anywhere right now. I suppose, and we talked about this, 2 weeks ago before the bye week, right? That if this team just flattens out over the last 4 games and they are non-competitive, that we could see some movement, or at least could see a waffling, or maybe some tire kicking, or whatever it might be. We're down 1 week of the 4.
Yeah.
It was not a good week. No. It was awful, in fact. In fact, you had a week off. You had a week to try to clean things up. You had a week to try to work on some fundamentals. You had a week to work on discipline. I don't know what. And it was worse. And so it's kind of led me to believe that I'm just not sure that there's – and this is honestly – it's going to sound terrible. It's my opinion alone. Nobody told me to say this. Nobody told me I couldn't say this, so I'm going to say it. But I would tell you that I don't blame Gerard so much as I blame the entire operation because I just don't believe he's been supported the way that a rookie head coach should be supported.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and I'm not taking an individual shot at AVP, at DeMarcus Covington, at any of the coaches. I'm not even really taking a shot at Elliott Wolf, although I guess you probably could, but that's kind of a cheap shot right now. It's a low blow. You know, it's too easy. Low-hanging fruit, whatever you want to call it, right? We know, we can see, and we really underscored it this past week. There isn't enough talent on this team. There should have been more. We talked about there being more. I told you all along I thought this team was probably worth 5 or 6 wins, you know, and if you developed Drake May and won 5 or 6 games, okay, then you could say that this was a step in a right direction. Right now, I believe that they have begun to take a step backward. And I'm not sure anything can be done over the last 3 weeks, especially since 2 of these games are against the Buffalo Bills, which we'll begin talking about here just shortly. I'm just not sure you can take a positive step forward. I'm getting to the opinion now where I don't think it's going to happen, but there's some merit to just wiping the slate clean, cleaning house and starting over and bringing in new. And whether or not that means going out and trying to get the some of the old gang together and bring in Mike Vrabel or bring in a Josh McDaniels or bring in this or bring in that. Okay, that's fine. You can bring in all the coaches you want to, but bottom line is that this team has serious personnel issues.
Yeah.
And so you probably then if you're really thinking about coaches and the teaching and the mentoring and all that kind of stuff, you also got to think about personnel. And you also have to think about, bringing in somebody, whether it's, Thomas Dimitroff or Scott Pioli, or if those guys would even entertain coming back, but guys who have been here before and been a part of the success here, so they certainly know what it was like during the successful period, and they could draw on that from experience. I think that's fine. And I think that was what the hope was with Gerard, is that, here's a player and here's a coach. He's learned under, one of the best who have ever done it, and it's not translating for one reason. And of course, I think we talked about this one last week. Gerard was kind of behind the 8 ball anyway, and I think this was a fundamental flaw in what the Crafts allegedly decided 4 or 5 years ago when they earmarked him or, spotted him as potential head coaching talent. They should have sent him on his way to get experience under somebody else and to learn how to call plays and to learn strategies and to learn, schemes and pick things up from other guys and then come back to New England with all this knowledge and combine that with what he learned here under Coach Bill, and then voila, you might have had a puncher's chance here. But I think that's a real issue. And if we're going to take a step forward sooner rather than later, I'd like to see Mr. Clean come in with his magic eraser and just scrub it all.
Yeah, it's tough because the things that we were sold with Gerard Mayo on were more leadership qualities, relationships, relating to players because he was a player. And frankly, a lot of that type of stuff is just not tangible, right? Like you're not going to see it if you're not in the building, and we're in the building, but I always like to say we're not really in the building, right? Like being in the building.
Yeah, we're in the building, but we're not in the building.
Right. So like exactly, like we're literally physically sitting in the building,
yeah.
but we might as well be in 2 different
All
buildings.
this construction going around us. And by the way, they didn't build a doorway to the bathroom.
Well, that's
what the hell is that?
That's how we got on the topic of how Marine.
That's how we got on and how he had to go take care of business in Afghanistan, because we were talking about how they're building, the new, outside facility here. They're redoing our studio, which you can see now. This is they did the end part very first, so that could get on the air. But now they're building all this stuff around us.
Yeah,
they forgot a doorway to the bathroom.
Listen. This is above my pay grade. I got nothing to do with this.
They're cutting the doorway. Don't worry.
All right. Well, I was going to say, you going to provide the bucket?
I can if you need it.
No.
But back to the point at hand.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So,
I do like to digress. Sorry.
So it's okay. So I think it's difficult because that type of stuff is really difficult to see. It's really difficult to report on. It's really difficult for fans that are watching games on Sundays at home to really see that that this is a people person, that he's got those skills. And you're talking to Dietrich Wise earlier today, and I know that a lot of people say, oh, okay, well, he's just going to defend his coach. Like, what is he supposed to do? But Dietrich Wise, said that Gerard is one of the best leaders he has ever been around. And that's what I think a lot of people saw in him. But the issues that we're seeing are football related. It's X's and O's. It's fundamentals. It's defensively, are you sound? Are you playing as 11 guys on a string? Are you keyed into your run fits? Do you know your coverage assignments? Do you play the proper techniques on the line of scrimmage? Like that type of stuff is not, let's get everybody in a room and sing Kumbaya, right? Like that's not what we're talking about now. And when I look at sort of a microcosm of what's happening right now with this team and with this coaching staff, the precipitous drop-off of the defense, I believe to be a snapshot into what's going on with this team, because that's his side of the ball.
Yeah.
And that's the side of the ball that had the continuity from a personnel perspective, that had the continuity from a coaching perspective. I didn't necessarily think it was going to be as good as it was with Bill, but I did not expect that it would drop off without Bill, that it would completely tank.
Nobody expected
or crater without Bill. So that to me is the biggest indictment right now on Gerard Mayo, is that the defensive side of the ball has completely lost its way. And I look at DeMarcus Covington and I look at Gerard Mayo, and I see two guys that maybe weren't 100% ready for the positions that they're in. And now they've exacerbated that issue by having two of them in important roles.
Yeah.
So when I look at Covington, I say he's a defensive line coach. You had a defensive-minded head coach in Bill Belichick. The play caller was Steve. Then it was Gerard, who was, the co-defensive coordinator with Steve. So at best, we're talking about Covington being the fourth lieutenant on the defense last year. And now he's become the first lieutenant overnight. And now Gerard's become the head coach, so his hands are less on the defense because his hands have to be elsewhere. And so...
And that automatically leads us to disappointment, because we thought that was his thing.
Right.
Right?
Right. And this is also, the second point I wanted to make on this was just, you hear a lot of, it didn't work out with a lot of coaches in year one. Dietrich Wise himself brought up Dan Campbell today and said, didn't work out in year one with Dan Campbell in Detroit. Didn't work out in year one for Bill here, 2000. Didn't work out for Kyle Shanahan, who had a bad record his first year with the San Francisco 49ers. But all three of those guys, you could point to something tangible and say, I see it with this guy. I see where we're going with this guy. Bill, it was obviously defense, right, and his acumen on defense. Kyle Shanahan, it was obviously the other side of the ball. If I could sit here and point to, that's good scheme. That unit looks buttoned up. This is the way it's supposed to be. So, the press conferences and the game management and all, I would be willing to live in and learn and, kind of allow Gerard to grow in those other aspects if I thought that they were well coached on the defensive side of the ball.
Right.
Because I could at least hang my hat on, that's what he's bringing to the table. That's his specialty. The other stuff like that, learning and how to handle being a head coach, that stuff will come with experience. But I don't see that. To me, they are not innovative or schematically creative on either side of the ball. They don't do anything schematically that stresses the opponent, that makes the opponent think, that puts the opponent in binds. They don't do anything on either side where I watch their film on Mondays and I say, neat wrinkle. Cool little scheme here. This build up, this sequencing of plays was creative or was innovative. I don't see any of that.
Is it possible we don't see it because the caliber of player doesn't get it?
Yeah, it's possible, and I think that this sort of speaks to maybe the combination of physical and also smarts, like in savvy talent. I'm talking about players, right? Like physical talent is one thing, but you also have to have savvy in order to go out there and execute a certain blitz or to execute a read option play with Drake May at quarterback. But I look at other teams that are young teams. The Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders didn't say, we're going to wait a year to run Jaden Daniels. Like, we're going to turn Jaden Daniels into a pocket passer for his rookie season because we just don't have the horses to run that kind of offense. Or we want him to learn to play conventional quarterback.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. Cliff Kingsbury was running LSU's offense, right? They have bells and whistles all over the place. And they have scary Terry McLaurin. But look at the rest of the receivers. Look at the offensive line. They have a rookie starting at left tackle. Like they are off. Their team is not in. There was a reason why they were the second overall pick and the Patriots were the third overall pick in last year's draft. So that to me is the part that I'm most concerned about with this team moving forward. There's a lot. I get that there's a lot of concerns from people about the program. Like his handling of press conferences. The talent and the personnel side of things, just the media in general and how the media is being handled in the building. I get there's a lot of concerns about all that. As a football guy, my concerns are when you get to Sunday, does anybody fear you? Is there anything that you are doing as coaches to elevate what's being put out there on the field?
Yep.
And right now, I have to admit I have a tough time seeing it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. And I think you kind of, touched on, the real issue here, that if he had lost the locker room, if the players were questioning him, then there would be no reason to keep him.
Right.
But because he has the respect of the players,
I agree.
because the players like him, love him in some instances, because they know of who he is and where he's come from and he's paid his dues and what have you, because he still commands that respect in the locker room. That's the one thing that's, to me, that's got to be the only thing really that's kind of saving his opportunity here. And that might be enough to kind of hang your head on. Again, I think we need to wait, in all honesty, for these final 3 weeks to play themselves out. Because if we see, and again, it's going to be tough. You got two of these games against Buffalo and against the Chargers team that's, playing over the postseason as well.
Yeah.
So you are up against it. This was your last, in my opinion, your last best chance to win a game. And you didn't even come close.
Yeah.
That just, wow. I mean, boggles the mind, number one. But number two, so after 3 weeks, is that love in the locker room still going to be as strong as it is now? I mean, I don't know. And even if he has that love and respect in the locker room, which is great, that's no small thing. That's everything, really, because it has to start there. It's just the guys against the world, right? Us against them. But isn't this also the time where a true leader's got to step up and say, hey, this is my responsibility. I'm the leader here. We need to make a change. That belongs to the Crafts.
Yeah.
And, maybe they've already just said you're good for this year. We don't know that. We can assume that, potentially. And, of course, if nothing happens, certainly I would say by Black Monday, then it's not going to happen. So that's why these next 3 weeks are going to be really interesting. A, to see how the Patriots play. B, see how they compare to their competition. C, how is the locker room going to react if they do get, their hats handed to them over these last 3 weeks, especially with the one game left at home. And D, with these rumors out there that Mike Vrabel now wants to come back and coach the Patriots.
Yeah.
And those rumors, those are out. That's out there. And so if he does, and then there's the talk about maybe getting at least some of the band back together, how real is it? And if you're really overlooking and overseeing, this group, do you, succumb to the familial pressures? You succumb to the fan pressures? I mean, what's in the best interest of the franchise? You've got sponsors, and we love our sponsors here, but you got sponsors that are questioning recommitments, reinvestments. You got season ticket holder base that has been an extra stadium size for a number of years that's beginning to dwindle a little bit. That's a matter of public record, or at least a matter of record based on what I've seen thus far. So, I mean, I don't think anybody's in dire straits here. But at the same time, when you start to see slippage, and if you own something and it's valuable, and the Patriots are valuable, we know this, they're the second or third most valuable franchise on the planet. All right? So when you see slippage in that, if you own that asset, aren't you going to want to try to shore it up to keep, any more tarnish from appearing on the armor, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a fair point, and I think just even smaller than that, you have this rookie quarterback who's playing pretty good, and you can see the talent with Drake. And look, I know it's only his first year right now, but time goes by really quickly, and all of a sudden you're going to wake up one morning and he's going to be 3 seasons in, and he's going to be Trevor Lawrence, and he's going to be in one playoff game if you're lucky, right? And that's the part that when we start to talk about, is it fair? To have these conversations. And I just want to put it out there too, I find it a little bit interesting that this has been the week. This was the week that it was too much, right? These things that have been going on with the team, we've been talking about, John, for months.
A long time.
And now all of a sudden it's this is the week where the fire is burning. But with that being said, you have to start to think about the window that you have right now with Drake May. And coming up this offseason, you have $132 million in cap space projected, which would be a league high if that number holds. You are probably going to have a top 5 draft pick in the draft again next year, maybe even top 3. And as the Crafts, you have to ask yourself, are these the people that we are confident in spending $132 million of our money, and then also having another really, really important draft, and they're the ones picking the groceries? That's a question only they can answer, but that's a really difficult question. And I'm weary. We're all weary, right? We're all concerned about whether or not this is the right course to chart. But you have a bad draft again next year. You have a bad free agency again next year. Now he's in year 3. And he has nobody around him. And I'm talking about Drake, right?
Yeah.
And now, at that point, now you probably are cleaning house. So now he's on regime 2, year 3, right? Head coach number 2, offensive coordinator number 2. And these are the things that, unfortunately, this is the cycle. This is the cycle that you get in, that bad teams get in. That you could have Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be on, coach number 3, 4 at this point, if you want to count the interim coach, assuming that Doug Peterson is blown out there. Urban Meyer, the interim coach, Doug Peterson, now he's going to be number 4. And so that's when I look at Drake, that's my biggest fear, is that they're going to end up they're going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, you have a talented guy, but you just can't put the right pieces around him.
Yep. It's what it looks like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've kind of gone back and forth on this more times than I really care to count this year. We shouldn't have to be dealing with this. We really shouldn't have to be, but we are.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with it because of the overall, one-loss record of this team, of this franchise. And I think you could even settle for the one-loss record if you saw incremental move toward something positive. Yeah. And last week, again, it was just Mother May I take 3 steps backwards. That's basically kind of how I viewed it, especially coming off a bye week. A bye week, you're supposed to clean things up. Bye week, you're supposed to tweak. Bye week, you're supposed to, reteach and learn. Nothing got – I don't want to say nothing because we weren't there. We don't know. We don't know. But that begs a larger question. If they did try to clean things up, if they did teach, if they did try to instruct, if they did try to clean things up, it didn't take very well. Yeah. So what is it with the teaching and the coaching aspect of it here that's not getting through.
Yeah, and like to specifically talk about this Cardinals game, I was some of the offensive linemen in the locker room after the game spoke about this with a bunch of us, and the Cardinals do a nice job up front defensively of changing up their fronts, right? Like some teams, the Colts a couple weeks ago, the Bills are a 4-3 over defense. They run a 4-3 over nickel. They're going to be in 4-3 over nickel for most of the game. So they're a team that you kind of know where everybody is, and like it's still they have good talented players. So
just before you go any further, explain 4-3 over nickel.
Yeah, so like nickel defense being 5 defensive back,
correct,
right? 4-3, 4 down defensive linemen. They play, not to complicate it further, but they play an over G front. So they're going to put the nose tackle is going to be shaded on the inside of the guard, right? So they're going to have 2 guys on one side of the formation. They're going to have a bubble, and then they're going to have the tackle and then the end, right? And so they play that front. Since Sean McDermott's gotten there, that is the only front that they play on first and second down. That is their base defensive front. So the Cardinals are a team that mixes it up front. They're going to move guys around. They're going to make it difficult for you to set your mic points and all that kind of stuff. And so when we saw, this isn't absolving anybody, but when we see like Vidarian Lowe just blocking nobody, it's because they're in a mental pretzel, right? Of, well, I have this gap, but there's nobody in this gap. So like what
am I supposed to do?
What am I supposed to do?
And that's my point.
Yeah.
This should have been ironed out weeks ago.
Yeah, they had a tough time with Budda Baker because Budda Baker is one of these players that, like the Patriots safeties, is a hybrid. So he's going to play at multiple levels of the defense. So like when they play a lot of big nickel with Budda Baker in the box. Mm-hmm. So like when Budda Baker's in the box, is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? Like how are we treating him when he's in the game? And they just didn't have a great plan of you have to have a plan of like, how are we going to declare this player? Is the line responsible for him? Is the back? Is the quarterback? Like who's responsible for blocking this guy? And that is a plan that you go in before the game and you have a plan. It doesn't necessarily mean that the plan's always going to work, but you have a plan and everybody is on the same page with said plan.
Yep.
So when you go and you watch Vidarian Lowe a couple times where he just flat out whiffs and just looks like he's not blocking anybody, that's up here. That's not like he's physically losing a block, like he's falling off a block. It wasn't that. It's mentally he's like opening to his gap or to his spot that he's supposed to be blocking, and there's nobody in that spot. And he's looking around being like, who am I supposed to block here? So I think coming into this game with the Cardinals, I think they were not prepared. They were not well prepared for their fronts.
And how do you not get prepared with 2 weeks?
Yeah, they weren't well prepared for the fronts, and I don't think that they were well prepared for the man coverage either. I think they were surprised by how much man coverage the Cardinals played in this game. And so they got into the first quarter. The Cardinals played 50% man in the first quarter, which was a tendency breaker. That's not typically what they do. And I think they were flummoxed. I think they were surprised.
And that's the issue.
Yeah. I mean, that's the issue on the offense. Right, defensively, it's a whole different set of issues.
Well,
but offensively, there you go.
Defensively, we kind of touched on it just because, this is a team that was, according to all the DVOA numbers, was, one of the top defenses in the league a year ago. Now they're down at the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
And I know that they've, had injury issues, and they've lost one of their team leaders and one of their main anchors, in Juwan Bentley all season long. They were without, tackles and safeties and corners and things like this throughout the course of the year, but everybody has issues. Everybody has injuries. And the Patriots have actually probably come through some of those, with Bentley being the lone exception, as well as, almost anybody, and yet we've still seen continued regression.
Yeah. Defensively, to me, it's all about fundamentals. Like, I don't – they really simplified their scheme. I would say probably like early on in the season, they started to simplify. Really after that Rodgers Jets game on that Thursday night, that debacle where they couldn't stop Aaron Rodgers at all. They've gotten to a lot back to a lot of their bread and butters. Just we're going to play man coverage. We're going to, play 2 gap. We're going to 3-4, 2 gap. We're going to do all these types of things that we've done for years here in New England that have been successful. What I look at with them defensively right now is that their fundamentals are not very good. Their tackling is not very good. They do not rally to the football. They don't bring hats to the football.
And I don't understand that. That's stuff that should have been training camp material.
Yeah. Tackling, when I say tackling, it's not necessarily that they are flat out missing tackles, although that is happening. It's also that, it's the National Football League. These skill players are really, really talented guys. So if you don't bring multiple hats to the football, then you're one-on-one in space with James Conner, that's a difficult play to make when he's moving at full speed and he's coming at you, and he can go either. Both directions are open, and you have to square him up and tackle him. They don't rally to the ball on this defense right now. They don't fit the run very well defensively. So guys are not in the right gaps. Go watch the touchdowns near the end of the game on the goal line. There's nobody even in the gap that he's going through. And I get it. It's a goal line run from the 1 yard line. You're probably not going to stop him anyways, but can we at least have
body in the way?
Right. So they don't
line up right.
Correct. They're not tuned together defensively. So we can get on the fact that they have guys with limitations. I don't think that Jelani Tavai is the best linebacker in the world. I'm not trying to take a shot at him, but he's not, prime Ray Lewis, right? I don't think Kyle Duggar's Rodney Harrison, okay? But they're better football players than what they've shown this season. We've seen them be better football players last year.
We have.
So when I look at their the defensive side of the ball, do I think that they're a top 5 defense based on talent? Certainly not, and not with the injuries and the situations that they've had to pull guys out. But are they the 30th ranked defense in the league on talent alone?
I'd like to think that they're not.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that they're not, based on what we've seen from a lot of these guys in their previous career. I would also tell you that, again, it's not an excuse, but I think the loss of Juwan Bentley meant more to this defense than we originally thought it would.
Absolutely. From a communication standpoint, certainly. And then I would also say from, he was did a really good job of bottling up the ball. Mm-hmm. Even if Juwan Bentley wasn't making the tackle himself, he was really good at compressing the space that the running back had to work with, so that it was, I'd mentioned earlier, Connor had a two-way go. He could go left or he could go right. Juwan Bentley would make him commit. Right, he would compress the space that he was working in, so that way Jabril Peppers doesn't have to cover the entire sideline for James Conner. He only maybe has to cover a couple yard box instead, right? And it makes it so much easier to get the guy on the ground. They have had that player, Juwan Bentley style linebacker, for 25 years, right? Just going to Ted Johnson, Dante Hightower, Landon Roberts, Juwan Bentley, they've always had the sledgehammer because they play this 2-gapping system. They play with bubbles on the line of scrimmage, meaning the guards are uncovered a lot on the line of scrimmage, so those guards can come up to the second level. If you don't have a sledgehammer that can take on that guard, then there's going to be a whole lot of space. And right now, I look at the way that they try to fit it. Jelani Tavai and Christian Ellis and Sione Takitaki are not those types of players. They are not sledgehammers. They are, I don't want to call them finesse, but they're just different kinds of players than that. And especially Ellis and Takitaki, who are really pass game or even special teams linebackers. These guys are not truly every down linebackers in the NFL.
Weren't we critical, though, of Juwan Bentley for being one-dimensional and being just a sledgehammer, and wondering whether or not there was a place for a player like him in a modern-day NFL? Because you had to have a linebacker that had, some side-to-sideline, capability. And yet here it is. It turns out what he brings to the Patriots defensively is the very thing that the Patriots are missing most.
Yeah, it's with Bentley, and this is why I always would push back on that sometimes, is because Bentley, it's about scheme fit. He plays a role in a certain way that makes the rest of the pieces fit together from a front perspective. And I'm not trying to overrate Jawan Bentley. Again, I use Ray Lewis. Like, I'm not trying to tell you that he's Dick Butkus, okay? Like, he's a good player, but he's not going to the Hall of Fame. I get that. But it's the style of play that he plays the position at that's so key for the way that they want to fit it the rest of the front. Like, if you don't have somebody like that, then it's really difficult to be a 3-4, 2-gapping defense. So the one adjustment that I still haven't seen from them, that let those guys get up the field. Like, Christian Ellis is 235, 230 pounds, and you're asking him to try to get off a 320-pound guard, or stand up a 320-pound guard in the hole. Like, he can't do that. Like, it's not Christian Ellis's fault. He's just not built that way. So I've been disappointed a lot on defense that they haven't really had any answers of, like, how can we do this differently, with this personnel. Like, Bill would have had a different way of doing things where he would have said, okay, I don't have Jawan Bentley anymore, so I have to play to the guy's strengths that are on the field now. And I just feel like they haven't been able to make that adjustment.
Yeah, they have not. And before we jump back into the Bills, you mentioned Bill.
Yeah.
And when we spoke last week, he hadn't yet officially taken the job.
Yeah.
And now that he's taken the job and we've kind of seen things, have you changed your mind on whether or not this could potentially be a good fit or a misfit?
I haven't changed my mind. I would say that watching him in a little bit that they've shown, down at North Carolina, I think he was at the basketball game the other day, which I think is just crazy. Like, the fact that they're, like, marching him out there at a North Carolina basketball game, and I
don't think he looks that great in Carolina blue anyway.
I'm literally sitting there.
No. I'm used to seeing him with the hoodie and the, I'm sorry. Can't.
I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what world are we living in?
I don't know.
Yeah, right? Like, this is like Bizarro land.
Bizarro world. Yes.
Yeah.
Like Bizarro Superman, right? Am I right about that, Marine?
Trailer for the new Superman movie out tomorrow.
There you go.
Oh, nice. Okay, good.
He knew that right off the top of his head.
Of course he did.
But I would say that one thing that not changed my mind, but the one thing I see is that I think he just wants to coach. And I know he wanted to coach on his terms, and that was probably a big reason why it went this way. But I think he just wants to coach, and that was the place that he felt gave him the most comfort in terms of, it's going to be my staff, it's going to be my program, it's going to be my way of doing things. And so that's where he went. I still hate it, like, as a fan. As a fan of his and as a fan of football.
It's hard to get used to.
It's hard to get used to. I hate that he's not in the league. I hate it. I think that's a joke. I think it's a joke, and I think it's a joke to all the other teams, frankly. The 31 other teams. Like, here, I get it. It ran its course. It was time. I get why they felt that way. But the other 31 teams, like, it's kind of like, remember when Brady was a free agent and he joked that there was, like, an anonymous quarterback, and he's like, really? You're going to keep that guy over me? Like, you would rather keep him, and there's all this speculation of who he was talking about. I feel like there's like 10 teams in the NFL where it's the same thing, right? Where it's like, you're gonna keep that coach instead of hiring Bill Belichick. You're gonna keep whoever, name the name, right?
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
It's totally bizarre. But be that as it may, I think they decided, all these other teams decided, that it would just be too much of an internal struggle for a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
To bring in someone who's 72 years old as a rookie coach in college to come in and basically do it. He wanted control, and there wasn't an NFL team that was willing to give him the kind of control that he was looking for, that he ostensibly, I guess, he has, on the college ranks.
Yeah, totally. I think it had to have been a really unique situation for him in the NFL, where the only team, maybe two teams, ironically both NFC East teams, like Dallas and Philly, I felt like it could have worked because you have really strong, Howie Roseman's a really strong figure in Philadelphia, and obviously Jerry Jones is a really strong figure in Dallas. So, like, they had hired Bill just to coach, right? And said to Bill,
but apparently that wasn't good enough.
Yeah, and maybe
wasn't
that's
good enough for Bill.
But if they had said to Bill, we feel like we're great coaching away from winning a Super Bowl in Philly, if we're great coaching away from winning a Super Bowl in Cincinnati, but we're going to keep the personnel infrastructure in place, and we just want you to come here and coach.
Wasn't good enough.
Yeah, that's the only way I think it worked in the NFL, and now he's in North Carolina with Michael Lombardi and
Chapel Hill,
and he's probably going to bring his sons and bring Matt Patricia, and I'm sure Barrage is next, right? Like
hail the gang's all here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
all right, let's get back now to the Buffalo Bills, because here's a team that has we thought, at least initially. First of all, it's weird as hell that we're in December and you're playing a team for the first time. But nevertheless, this is a team that we thought might have its supremacy in the AFC East over the recent years challenged. They did not. In fact, far from it. They've answered the bell and then some, and that's to the Bills, I think, credit. That's to, Coach McDermott's credit. That's to the credit to everybody who's basically on the team. And Josh Allen, let's face it. I mean, I think he's played at an MVP caliber level for the Bills this year, to have them in that realm. And I know that there are a lot of people, and we've talked about it on this program, that would really love to see and think that we might ultimately see that the whole Buffalo, Detroit, potential Super Bowl between teams that have never won it. Maddie Glab covers the Bills as their multimedia journalist for the BuffaloBills.com, and she joins us here in the Playbook. Maddie, it's John and Evan here in Foxborough. How are you today?
Hey, guys, doing good. I'm sitting in one of our suites in the stadium doing this phone call, and I'm watching some snow fall on the stadium right now. But don't worry, I don't think it's going to be anything too bad for Sunday. And the stadium is looking like it's pretty cleared out from that last snow game that we had against the 49ers just a few weeks ago here.
Right. I don't think it would bother anybody here if there were extreme conditions, to be quite honest with you, except for people like Evan who have to be in the middle of it.
Bring back to that game where we played against Mac Jones, and
yes,
he had just a few pass attempts, and you guys won that game?
Yes, I think that, when we're talking extreme conditions, has a way of kind of evening things out, because I think it's going to take something kind of weird like that for the Patriots to get their puncher's chance in here, to be honest.
I mean, a game and the conditions and the elements in Buffalo, whether it's snow, whether it's rain, whether it's the wind, you have to abandon what you thought you were going to do if it's something you're not completely prepared for, which Sean McDermott talked about that in our press conference today. It's supposed to be a cold weather game, like 18 degrees, which these guys live here. You guys know what it's like to be in winter, so that shouldn't affect the group as much. But he says, at this point in the season, we are trying to prepare for whatever is going to be happening outside, so that when the game happens, we're not surprised for snow or wind or rain. That shouldn't be the case on Sunday, but you never know here in Buffalo with what could happen with the weather. But yeah, if it's going to be a weather game, your game plan does change a little bit, and maybe the team you're about to play against, their game plan also changes for better. So weather can definitely be a something that evens the playing field between the two teams.
Yeah, an equalizer. Maddie, what do you feel like is the best attribute for this Buffalo team? And do you feel like it is a better team now than maybe at this stage a year ago?
I think it's their quarterback, Josh Allen. I think everything runs through him. His leadership this year has taken a step up. He spoke to media today and just talked about his confidence and how he's never felt better and he's never been more confident in himself. And he spoke about having fun in the building. He's doing this press conference as about 10 players are throwing a Nerf football that has a whistle sound on it. So every other question, you hear the whip of the whistle in the background as he's answering these questions. And he goes, we're having fun here. And I think that's a big part of this group is they lost a lot of leadership, and a lot of those guys are missed. And there were great players in the building here last year. And this year it was about how are we going to put the pieces back together without some huge prominent roles on offense and on defense, without a bunch of captains. And they figured out a way to make it work. Not saying that, it's better without those guys at all, but it's different. And they found a way to put those pieces together and make it work with new players on offense, with new players on defense. Joe Brady, as a new offensive coordinator, I think really has a handle on this group right now. I feel like the offense as a whole is hitting their stride. The defense, while they have allowed quite a few points in the last 2 games, they've played against high-powered offenses. I would hope that changes, in the future as we close out the regular season, they kind of get back to what they're capable of, what we've seen from them at the beginning of the season. This is a group that is getting healthier. There were some injuries in last week's game, but to answer the question, yeah, I do think this group is in a better place right now than they were last season. And I mean, last season, they didn't know they were playing in the playoffs until the whistle blew in that final game.
Yep.
This year, they've locked up the AFC East, and they have a chance at the 1 seed. They can control their ability to win these games by playing as hard as possible, but it's also about the Chiefs and what happens in the last 3 games of their regular season. They have to drop 2 of their last 3 in order for the Bills to get a 1 seed. The Bills have to win out, but Josh Allen spoke about that today. There's a little bit of ease to the building right now because we have clinched that playoff spot. Not saying that we're taking our foot off the gas, but it's nice to know, hey, we're in the dance and we do still have a chance at the 1 seed. I think that's the carrot being dangled in front of them right now that's keeping them pushing at a high level and keeping them motivated and super focused.
Let's kind of start with that for just a second, only because the fact remains is that you're in the dance, as the players suggested earlier today. Everybody knows that it might be somewhat problematic to leap over Kansas City at this stage of the game with so little time left in the regular season. Is it possible at some point in time, because you're going to be kind of where you're at here, that there might be some saving of some people, if not this week, certainly I would think by the January 5 game when you guys play the Patriots again, to in a sense give yourself a bye week to make sure that you're as healthy as you can be for the postseason.
Yeah, I think that definitely could be an option depending on what happens over the next 2 weeks with the Chiefs. I think that will, of course, impact Buffalo's plan as they move forward to close out the regular season.
Yep.
But if they're at a place where the Chiefs have just won the next 2 games and they're not in the spot where that 1 seed is still within reach, I could see either. I could see our head coach and Sean McDermott deciding, hey, let's give some of these veterans a rest. Let's have them be ready for the postseason, or maybe let's give some of these guys who are still dealing with injuries, who would be able to go if we needed them to go, but let's give them a week of rest here. So I could see it going either way, but I know, this is week 16 that we have ahead of us, and right now they're still playing with a mindset of, hey, we could get the 1 seed in the playoffs, so we're going to put our guys out there who are willing, capable, and able to go. So it should be a good matchup against this Patriots team. I know you guys haven't had the wins this season, but you do have a rookie quarterback who looks like, hey, we can build a team around this guy, and you have a defense that has some strong areas to it.
Well, I'm sure that's what you're hearing from the Buffalo players anyway. To be honest with you, Maddie, this team is just it's rife with issues. But we take them kind of as they come around here. I wanted though to touch on the offense, because you mentioned the points that have been scored the last couple of weeks, and honestly, clearly Josh is the straw that stirs that particular drink. But I mean, what other aspects to this team have you seen perform? Especially over the last couple of weeks, that have even been a little bit surprising, not to you, but to other observers, maybe within the locker room. Hey, we didn't know we were capable of that, kind of thing. I'll start by just saying, to me, I think the Buffalo running game might be a little bit more underrated than a lot of people give it credit for.
Totally. That's where I was going to start. Sean McDermott always says it starts at the line of scrimmage, so let's start there. I think our offensive line has been unbelievable this season. This has been a healthy group of 5 players again for the second year in a row. seasons prior to that, I feel like every year there was a guy in the offensive line who was injured, and there was shifting and shuffling that was happening in the middle of the season, and didn't make things easy for the group as a whole or for our quarterback and Josh Allen. And I feel like this year they've got a really solid group out there. They haven't allowed a sack in 4 weeks. Josh Allen has only been sacked 13 times this entire season. That that is the lowest amount in the league in terms of quarterbacks who've played in every single game this season. So just that alone, he's got time in the pocket to make decisions. And also because of that offensive line, you're seeing a run game that we haven't seen with Josh Allen yet. And I think when you pair him as a quarterback and his skill set together with an efficient run game, you're getting a team that's scoring 30 points in 8 straight games, over 40 points in the last 2. The run game's been averaging over 170 rushing yards in the last 2 games. So when you have a run game that's working and you have 3 running backs who are all doing good things on the field and doing it in different ways, you have an offense, I think, that's just really hard to stop because it's hard to know how do we scheme for this. I mean, our running back, Ty Johnson, was the leading receiver last week.
Right, exactly. Those numbers sound like the Patriots from a decade ago, doesn't it? Ev?
Yeah, absolutely. I said 2 questions along those lines for you, Maddie, and one of them was just about Joe Brady, who I think is people are starting to recognize him as a potential head coaching candidate down the line, and just with his creativity and his play design, all that stuff. So, what do you observe from being around Joe Brady a little bit and his relationship with Josh Allen?
He's been here, as the quarterback's coach before the offensive coordinator. And I think it's great to get somebody like that in the building before they're calling plays, because you then get a feel for how does your quarterback act, what makes him tick, what are the things he likes, what are the things he doesn't like. So you build that relationship before the job of, okay, now I'm going to go call plays for you. And I think that was essential in their relationship. And I think you now see that with those 2 connected on the field. I also think a big part of Joe Brady this season, the first part of the season, was kind of feeling these new players out. Khalil Shakir was the only wide receiver on this roster that was left from last season that caught a pass from Josh Allen. So they have an entirely new cast of characters who you're trying to figure out, how are we going to fit them into this playbook? What do we need to add to this playbook? How can I make these guys shine? And now at this point in the season, over the last few weeks, I think you've really seen this offense shine. And in addition to Josh Allen playing out of his mind, I think it's also been Joe Brady getting a really good feel of everybody and kind of hitting his groove. And Sean McDermott has said, he's done a phenomenal job. And it's been about feeling everybody out and now feeling like you're in a place where you really understand things and you really feel comfortable with the people around you. So that's what I've seen out of Joe Brady. And then just from like a personality standpoint, he's just like a guy's guy. You watch this offensive coordinator on the field during practices. He's wearing shorts when it's 20 degrees outside and is in a short sleeve t-shirt, and he's joking with the guys and he's having a good time. So I think that adds to the chemistry as a whole for this offense, is it just looks like this group loves being around each other. And I think you have a coach that's enjoying that as well.
Yeah, and just sticking with the run game and the line of scrimmage and all that kind of stuff, from the outside looking in, it looks to me like this was like concerted effort for the Bills to build a team that could win in the postseason. Obviously that's the last hurdle, and just watching their run game, it feels like, okay, that's going to work in January, in Buffalo or Kansas City or, wherever they have to go. Do you feel like that was, purposeful for them to really build up this run game and build it through the trenches?
100%. Covering this team for the last 6 seasons, one thing that you consistently hear Sean McDermott say, whether it's a praise or whether it's a we need to get better at it, it's running the football. And it's running the football in December and January and November when it starts to get colder, when we start to play in these snowy or rainy games, when the weather's not great, when the conditions aren't great. We have to be able to lean on our run game. And I think for the first time, were really able and capable of leaning on the run game. And it's been not just James Cook, it's been Ray Davis, who's become a bruiser for this team. It's been Ty Johnson, who has showcased how he can do so many different things with that running back position, whether it's catching passes or whether it's being somebody who can beat guys with his legs. I mean, James Cook has the second most rushing touchdowns this season with 13. He's right next to Derrick Henry, and the only guy who has more than that is a quarterback in Jalen Hurts. So he's having a great season, averaging 4.8 yards per carry. I think the rushing offense is such an important part to this offense as a whole. And it's something that Sean McDermott, I think, has preached regardless of who's been the offensive coordinator. And I think right now you've got the right guys in the building and an offensive coordinator who knows how to get the most out of his running backs and a group of running backs who are really coexisting well together. And we've got a running backs coach who's been here since Josh Allen walked through these doors. So you have a guy who also understands who they have at quarterback and kind of what will help him from that position.
All right, let's flip the script here real quick defensively, because it seems like the best way to describe this Buffalo defense is opportunistic. They've kept your team. They kept the team in position to win games, even though they might have given up a lot of points, especially over the last couple of weeks. Every once in a while, your offense has got to carry. Every once in a while, your defense has got to carry. And it seems like they're opportunistic. They're doing what they have to do at the time they need to do it. What's the one thing about this defense that you feel like Buffalo can kind of hang its hat on?
We've talked about it all year, calling this defense a splash play defense. They've got 25 takeaways. That's fifth in the league.
Yep.
They've been able to get takeaways at very important times within a game where you need the football. The offense needs another drive to win the game, and the defense is there to force a fumble, to grab an interception. It happened against the Lions. I mean, they were able to force an important fumble and recover it at the right point in the game, thanks to Christian Benford, our cornerback, and our linebacker who recovered it. And then at the end of the game, on special teams, when the Lions try for an onside kick with 12 seconds left in the game, you've got a nickel cornerback who grabs the ball and the game is over. So I think from that end of things, you have a defense who can make those splash plays. And that's been something that this defense has done a good job of since Sean McDermott took over as head coach. If you look at some of the stats since 2017, they rank pretty high in some of those categories in terms of like passing touchdowns allowed, takeaways, points per game. And I think we're seeing that on another level this season. I mean, their turnover margin is plus 18. So when you couple that together, the fact that they're taking away the football with the fact that Josh Allen isn't throwing interceptions this year, he only has 5 so far, you have a huge turnover margin, which they do have. So they're taking advantage of that. And this offense has been really good at scoring points off of those takeaways. So that's kind of what I think is like the lifeblood of this defense this season, is their ability to take the football away. Yeah. But in the last 2 games, they only have 1 takeaway. So that's something they need to get back to. I think that's one reason why we've seen in 2 straight weeks, teams have scored over 40 points on this defense.
And therein lies the challenge for the New England Patriots this weekend. One final thing for you, Maddie, and I got to rag on the Bills for just a second because I saw the uniform combo.
Everybody's really upset about this.
I saw the uniform combo, and I'm not happy. There's nobody here that's happy because it is an out-and-out steal of the Patriots throwback unis. You are aware of that, right?
I couldn't believe that we hadn't worn that combo before. I'm like, we're announcing a new combo. What do you mean we haven't worn a red top and the white pants? And it was, well, everybody thinks that's like the Patriots colors and the Patriots combo. So, people are aware of it here. So I'm sorry if we're stealing the thunder that the Patriots had, but I'm excited to see them rock it. We've done it before, not in a game, of course. Not in a game, but we've done it before in our Return of the Blue and Red practice.
It's a good-looking uniform. I totally understand why you'd want to copy it.
He wore Josh Allen wore the helmet, right? Was that what it was? It was like to the yes. season ticket holder practice. I remember that because that on Twitter that was the helmet. Oh, they were going crazy about how good he looked in the helmet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally understand that. Hey, thank you very much, Maddie. Appreciate the
Thanks,
time.
Maddie.
Good stuff today, and continued success. I hope you guys get the long run in the playoffs. We'll be pulling for you.
Thank you. We'll see you guys here on Sunday.
You got it.
good.
All right, Maddie Glab, who covers the covers the Bills for BuffaloBills.com. She's at Mad Glab, MADGLAB, on X if you want to follow her on X. But I thought her rundown and breakdown really of number one, the running game that the Bills are right now tuning to last couple of weeks, almost 200 yards, 190 yards, whatever. Great balance last week, I thought, against the Lions. I think they had 34 passes thrown by Allen and 34 rushes. I don't know if you can get any more balance than that.
Yeah.
But that and coupled with what she thought was the defining characteristic by the defense that's allowing them to win these high-powered games. They're getting takeaways.
Yeah, I'll leave you with this on the Bills' offense. Watching their film last week against Detroit, the way that they leverage Josh Allen's mobility and use that as a schematic advantage to the defense is fantastic to watch. Joe Brady does a fantastic job of designing those plays, and I know this has been a conversation around here about Drake May, and I'll continue to pound the table for Drake May being incorporated more as a rushing threat. It's not necessarily that he has to run the football. It's being a threat to the defense that he could run the football by design. We're not talking about scrambles and things like that. So watching them use Josh Allen and leverage his mobility against the defense, go watch the 41-yard touchdown that James Cook had in the game. That's all because Josh Allen is holding the backside of the play with the fact that he could keep the ball himself, and they're just hat on a hat to the run side, and it's just a walk-in touchdown.
Yeah.
Like, those are the types of things that you see in this Bills offense. On the goal line, Josh Allen went untouched on the goal line for a jogging in touchdown because they have so many different bells and whistles off of him being the point guard of this offense. That's the type of stuff from a play design perspective that the Patriots sorely lack for a quarterback that has a lot of the same physical talents.
All right, brother. Bring your mittens. Bring your woolens.
Get some wings.
That's true.
So that'd be good.
I honestly, every time I've ever been to
That's
Buffalo.
always my one thing about going to Buffalo. I'm like, well, I'll get some wings.
And so how many times have you been to Buffalo?
Oh, man.
How many different times have you been?
At least 4 or 5.
All right, and how many different places have you tried for wings?
At least 4 or 5.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So
I try to go someplace new.
I think that's a wise idea.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the standbys and the Anchor Bar and all. I totally understand all that.
Yeah.
Been there several times myself. But that's the one thing that I look forward to is I would always ask someone either who's lived there or a hotel concierge or whatever said, all right, where do the townies go?
Right.
Okay, where's everybody headed today? I know where they were going 5-10 years ago, but today, where does everybody go get a wing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
There you
that's
go.
what you have to rely
I'll
on.
have a report next week for
Yes,
you.
yes, please.
I will.
Yes, all
I
right.
will.
Thank you. Appreciate
Anytime.
you, Jeff. All right, the one and only Easy Lazar is where you find him on X. 855-PATS-500, the toll-free telephone number, as you well know, 855-PATS. 500. Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, well, you can go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots, Toyota. Let's go places. Where we're going now is try to look more at this at a New England point of view. Doug Kide, who's a friend of the program, long friend of the program, and covers the Patriots for the Boston Herald, is going to join us now here in the playbook. And I got to get the phone thing working. Sorry, Doug. Oh, there it goes. Got you, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, John?
Hanging in, brother. Hanging in. We just got the lowdown on why Buffalo is Buffalo right now, and I got to admit, why are we playing these? It's kind of like, oh man, alive. You got to play the game. I understand this is what the schedule calls for, but boy, I got to tell you, just if there was ever a potential mismatch on paper, it would seem like one is kind of stacking up for this weekend.
Yeah, it seems like bad timing for the Patriots to have to face the Bills twice in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say that the Patriots should be improving at this point. So there's no better time for them to play than right now against the Bills. They're certainly pretty healthy, I would say. Saw a couple of guys missing from practice. We'll see what happens with those guys. But obviously, you've got Barmore back, you've got Peppers back. Most of the key pieces on offense and defense are healthy right now. So in that regard, I guess it's not the worst thing. But at least for Gerard Mayo, if indeed, he's potentially coaching for his job, other coordinators coaching for the jobs, it's tough when this last 3-week stretch has the Bills twice.
Yeah, so let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Evan and I dealt with it a little bit earlier in the show. How much do you feel Gerard first, and then Alex and DeMarcus after? How much are they coaching for their jobs over the last 3 weeks? Is that legitimate, or are you kind of our opinion, we still kind of feel like, all right, Gerard's probably safe, but the coordinators, that's where the change could really be?
Yeah, I think I'm on board with that overall, because at least, a week or two ago, whatever it was, I had still heard, people from within the building expected Gerard to be back. And obviously you have one of your worst losses of the season, though, against the Cardinals. And I can't expect things will be much better against the Bills this week in Week 18.
Yeah, that's why. That's why I asked the question, because it doesn't look like over the last 3 weeks here that things are going to get better. And we talked about coming off of the bye week. Hey, these last 4 games, this is an opportunity to show what you got, and blah blah blah. And if they don't fall flat, everybody should be back, or at least the head coach back. But this could get ugly before it gets better.
I think that you just can't have 3 more games in a row like you did against the Cardinals. I think you have to show some improvement. And offensively, we saw the crafts shown on TV, or at least the lip readers, believing what they had the crafts saying on TV. So we kind of know about the offensive coordinator situation right now. But defensively, I think that Gerard Mayo and DeMarcus Covington perhaps deserve even more blame than Alex Van Pelt, because at least with Van Pelt, you can point to Drake May's development. Mm-hmm. You can point to the fact that the offense has improved under Drake May, that they're continuing to improve. Pretty efficient performance against the Cardinals. Obviously not good on third down, but May had 4 incompletions. Running backs were averaging 4.8 yards per carry, so at least things are getting better on offense. On defense, if anything, things are getting worse as more guys come back. So that's more damning to me.
Well, you put out earlier today, about Gerard and his press conference earlier about how he had to answer questions about job security and whether or not this is the right time or the right place. And he said, "Hey, there's never been an issue in my mind. I talk to these guys multiple times per day, and there's never once been anything that's really been said about it." And I'm kind of paraphrasing. What was your reading between the lines here? And is it just because maybe we're asking the questions, and I say media as the we here, the media is asking questions, does it make it legitimate that there's a shot he might not come back?
Not necessarily. I do think that his answers are at least interesting. He's not saying like, "Oh no, the Crafts have told me I'll be back," which I wouldn't necessarily expect him to do anyway. But sometimes Gerard Mayo does shoot from the hip more than Bill Belichick, obviously, for example, or other head coaches. So he is kind of leaving his answers up for interpretation a little bit. But I don't know. I will say that there's been no definitive report that Mayo's coaching for his job. Yeah. And there have been more definitive reports that the Crafts are expecting to have him back next season. So overall, I would still lean towards him being back in 2025. But I really do. If I were ownership, I would certainly want to make that decision after these last 3 games.
So if there is still a decision to be made, what is more likely, a clean house or picking and choosing spots where, maybe we need to get the broom out and kind of pick up the dust?
I think the latter. And I think that, even if you're just talking about assistant coaches, I think that there will certainly be some changes. You have to have some changes this offseason, whether it's as much as cleaning house or as little as just, moving on from some of the assistants. And I think that that's to be expected with a first-year head coach anyway, especially one where the staff was kind of thrown together to some degree because Gerard Mayo didn't have a lot of experience around the NFL, didn't have a lot of, he's not out there networking all the time. He's working under Bill Belichick, where he also played under. So he just didn't know that many coaches. So I do feel like the staff was probably thrown together a little bit. Now, as you see some of the staffs getting fired around the league, maybe they start to poach some of those coaches, replace a little bit. I would probably advise against a full cleaning house, especially as it relates to the front office as well. Just because I've said this before, but I don't know how you would fire Elliott Wolf after he's drafted Drake May. I know that some people think that was an easy decision to make. He was the third quarterback at number 3 overall in a 3-quarterback class, but
I mean,
other
Doug, wouldn't
in that situation might have traded down.
Doug, wouldn't you have drafted Drake at that point?
Yes, I would have.
Okay, all right. So, look, I mean, I'm really not trying to diminish anything here, but the fact of the matter is that was the easiest pick of all to make at number 3. That was the home run hit. That was the one that you had to have, and they did that. It's everything else that came after is that deserves scrutiny.
It definitely does. I think it would be a raw deal to say thanks for the quarterback. See you later. And certainly, like I've been critical of the draft class. Seems like at least so far, Jalen Polk has been a mess. Caden Wallace has been hurt. Leighton Robinson and Javon Baker, mixed results with Leighton Robinson. Javon Baker's done little. I think that you should expect to see more than 1 year out of a draft class before you can fully judge it. Free agency-wise, right. Antonio Gibson and Austin Hooper were hits. Chukuma Okorafor and Nick Leverett, all these other guys weren't. At the same time, they're spending $4 million a year on these guys. It's not like these were $15 million investments that they've lost out on. I think the plan here was, all right, let's save the cap room, spend it when we're ready to be competitive, and once again, to not let that go to fruition and say, like, all right, here's the year that we expected to spend to compete. Let's see how you can do. Right. Once again, would feel a little bit unfair to me.
Right. All right. Well, the task at hand is obviously a large one over these last 3 weeks of the regular season. 2 of these games against Buffalo, which, it's amazing to me that, the NFL scheduling, folks, did this. But at the same time, we didn't realize the Patriots are going to be where they are. I think there was more of a chance for Buffalo to be where they are than for the Patriots to kind of meet them at that stage. But you got to play these games. I wonder if there's an opportunity. And we kind of talked about this earlier, but if we get, a good, solid, Buffalo day, then maybe the weather figures out a way to kind of even things out. I don't know if even that helps this team right now. Maybe complacency also helps evens this thing out, because this team has been hitting on all cylinders over the last couple of weeks. I watched the whole game, even though it was up against the Patriot game against Arizona last week. I watched the whole game in review for Buffalo and Detroit, and I just sat there and shook my head through the whole thing. I'm like, man, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago that it was New England in this point of view, where they literally could do anything they wanted to. They had the offense on the end of a string, like a yo-yo. You could just play it. And they did that against a really good Lions team. That was scary dangerous is what it was. And Josh Allen, I'm not sure there's an individual that's playing better in the NFL than he is right now, especially a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Gerard Mayo called him, the MVP candidate, the top MVP candidate.
Yeah, that's legit.
It's 100%. It's legit. And I mean, for that reason, the fact that the Lions, who played really well this season, just were absolutely not able to stop the Bills at all, it feels like this one could turn pretty ugly, right? I mean, the Bills only punted 1 time against the Lions, 48 points,
wow.
Firing on all cylinders, passing attack and rushing attack. Like, if the Lions are going to be giving that up, this Patriots defense just has to improve really fast to be able to limit them at all. And yes, certainly it seems like weather's going to be a factor. It's low of 2 degrees, high of 16, really cold. I know it's supposed to snow the day before. I haven't checked out the wind too much. Obviously, it's tough to predict that at this point. So maybe that plays a factor, but like the Bills are a team that should be built for that anyway. And they haven't been afraid to throw the ball in windy conditions or in tough conditions. So I think if anyone's built for it, it is the Bills. So I don't expect that to play a major contributing factor in this game. it just, I hate to be so negative about this, but it really feels like for the first time this season, this could be a really ugly game for the Patriots. And obviously we've seen them get blown out. We just saw them get blown out by the Cardinals. They got blown out by the Niners earlier. I think the Jets early in the season, but not one of those like 50-10 games. And it really, truly does feel like this could be one of them.
Well, this is why I think, as we look at the longer-term picture, this is why everything has to be on the table from, a little bit of mild dusting to a clean sweep of the house. Just because of the way, the schedule is borne out, you're probably not physically equipped to match up against a team that has especially the kind of offensive talent that Buffalo has right now. I'm like, wow, what a time of year to be facing, the mettle of the NFL. And again, one of the topics we were talking about earlier is it could be, maybe not this week, but depending upon what happens between now and January 5, the last game that's played between the two, if that's not flexed off into oblivion somewhere, and we don't know about that one yet, but because that's happened for the next 2 weeks anyway. The best Patriots opportunity might be is if Buffalo sits and rests everybody.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, maybe it's interesting because I think a lot of people saw the Patrick Mahomes injury and said, okay, well, maybe that increases the chances that the Bills will be competitive in Week 18.
Because they know now that Kansas City's susceptible to loss. Kansas City has to lose 2 of their last 3, and they got to sweep to get the 1 seed.
Yep. Exactly. But now with Mahomes, I think he was a full participant in practice yesterday. But, I mean, it obviously could limit him as well if he does play in these games. So Patriots really have to be hoping for some Chiefs wins before Week 18 because I do think that would make things a little bit easier because, let's say this is a complete blowout, like a 50-10 type matchup on Sunday, and then the Bills have something to play for in Week 18, and it's another one at that point, then I think it does become a little bit more difficult to not clean house. And I think that obviously it's not only Kraft's decision, him believing in it, but it's also you do obviously have to factor in fans as well.
Of course.
And if the Patriots lose as badly as they did against the Cardinals in the next 3 weeks, I can't imagine that fan interest would be extremely high this offseason if everyone's coming back, if you're bringing the whole game back together.
Well, that has to be a consideration here. We have our diehards here. You have your diehard readers and followers as well. But fact of the matter is you're not getting any of the periphery because you're not the hot commodity like you were 5, 6, 7 years ago. And how do you get back to that stage? And the only way I know to get back to that stage is to, A, put the good product back on the field, B, win games. That's the only way to do it.
100%. And you would think that they were hot commodities since this game got flexed and next week's game got flexed to Saturday. Apparently, the NFL still thinks that the Patriots are a hot commodity, but
because they have one marketable commodity in number 10 at quarterback, right?
And I mean that's what is going to be keeping fan interest. Obviously, is that I'm writing about it right now. Like Drake May, as a rookie, has been significantly better than Josh Allen was as a rookie.
Yep.
Obviously, there's some different circumstances there, but that's got to give Patriots fans, a lot of promise for the future there. Is that, are they exactly the same player? No, but May is much more developed already as far as, not turning the ball over at as high of a rate, accuracy, even some of the ways that he's able to make plays with his legs. Almost everything's better than Josh Allen. So that really does just speak to the potential that Drake May has and really what this team has moving forward. You're seeing what Josh Allen has done 3, 4, 5, 6 years after he was drafted. I do believe that Drake May's type of player could do the same thing for the Patriots.
Yeah, I got to admit that does leave me kind of like going, wow, let's hurry up and get there, The problem is,
absolutely.
What steps do you take in order to get there? Because the promise is definitely there. So, Doug, hey, thanks. Be safe travel this week, huh? And like I said, bring your mittens and and bring your long johns, and because I understand, as Cotton Fitzsimmons once told me, rookie, it's always rough in the buff.
Yeah, I'm planning on bringing the heaviest jacket I own, certainly some gloves, and I'll also be eating some wings this weekend.
Attaboy. All right.
Looking forward to it as much as I can. Yeah.
Well, I'd look forward to the wings. I mean, that. Believe me, I love me a good buffalo wing, so there's nothing wrong with that.
I just hope they don't get cold before I can eat them.
Oh, no. That's although if I'm going to eat cold food out of the fridge, buffalo wings are one of my choices.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good that. Yeah, absolutely.
They don't have to be hot to be good. In fact, I think a cold wing is pretty close, not quite, close to cold pizza.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair to say. Yeah.
Yep.
You're on to someone. Yeah.
All right. Way to go. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate you.
Yep. Absolutely.
You got it. The one and only Doug Kyed, at Doug Kyed, Kyed, the spelling of his last name, at Doug Kyed on X.
So the Weather Channel has it at 8 degrees after sunset.
Woo! Yes! 8 plus 8 in Buffalo. Yeah!
17 degrees with the sun out, 8 after the sun sets.
Nice. So the chill factor's got to be below 0, right? Got to be. The feel-like temperature, right? Oh, yeah. Football weather. Yes? What is it? Was it? Come on, weatherman Matt. Let's
I was looking at the wrong number. That was a 4% chance of snow.
Oh, 4% chance? That's all? Oh, that's nothing. Yeah, that's nothing. All right, 855-PATS-500. This program, of course, as well as all of our Patriots.com programming, brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light is the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Russell Baxter on, week 16 in the NFL is coming up in just a little bit. Let's get to the telephones. Sam has been hanging on in Connecticut for a while. Sam, you still with us?
Yeah, John, how's it going?
Hey, Sam. Okay? Yeah, we got you. Thanks for hanging in there, brother.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just had a question I wanted to ask you. I actually asked it on Patriots Unfiltered as well.
Yep.
But pretty much what the question is, or I guess a counter-argument to a very popular opinion. A lot of people seem to think that the Patriots should take the best player available in the draft because there's obviously, a ton of holes, with the offensive line, with the receivers, with the linebackers, with the corners. So, yeah, the general consensus has pretty much been, best player available. But I personally believe that we should get a offensive tackle and try to prioritize that. And my reasoning is that I feel like offensive line, specifically offensive tackles, is one of the only positions, or maybe, the only position that you can only really improve through the draft. Because I know there's a shortage in the NFL of, good offensive tackles, and teams rarely trade for them. So I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on that. I have heard that, some people say that, there might not be a tackle in the first round, worthy of that pick, which is where I bring in the idea of potentially trading back. And kind of off that, do you think any teams will be willing to trade up? Because I've heard that there's kind of a lack of, elite talent this draft. I don't think there's a ton of, big name quarterbacks where teams, will desperately try to get them. So I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on that. And yeah, that's really all I have.
Okay, well, you asked a ton there. My personal thought is I would love to see them take a tackle. I don't know what you consider worthy of the pick. It really depends on where the Patriots are picking. The kid at LSU, the kid at Texas. Those are a couple of tackles that are probably in the upper half, I would think, of the first round. So if you're in there in the first round, look, to each his own. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Not that anything is really going to be trash in the upper half of the first round. I personally believe the greatest need of all of the needs, the greatest need is on the offensive line. You need a bona fide starter at left tackle, and so I'm still leaning that way. Now, that having been said, if they feel like they can get that equivalent through free agency before the draft, then obviously in a perfect world, I'd say find out what you can get through free agency. Who's going to make themselves available? And then, sure, I would be happy to, jump on the Heisman train, for, the kid from Colorado. I'd be happy to, Travis Hunter. I'm not sure, though, that Travis Hunter is going to be a wide receiver in the NFL like everybody thinks he might be, because to me, having seen him play the little that I've seen him play, he screams corner. And, for the NFL because of his size and his ability. That doesn't mean you couldn't use him like the Patriots are using Marcus Jones right now. Use him a little, create a, 3 to 5, play set for him offensively per game, turn him into a kick or a punt returner as well. I mean, can you imagine kickoff returns with Marcus Jones and Travis Hunter? I mean, I don't think the Patriots, unless the ball's kicked through the back of the end zone, I don't think they're going to be letting the ball go down for the, for a touchback with those two guys back there. And I'd love to see, 2 shutdown corners defensively. Somebody to pair up, with Gonzo back in the backfield and then create a little package. So I think I'd be hard-pressed to go away from the best athlete available. Although, if he's the first pick in the draft, I don't know that the Patriots are going to be bad enough. They'd have to trade up to get him and probably give up things to move up, and they're not in a position to do that. So I think realistically, Travis Hunter is likely out of the question. I don't know if he slips to 3, if that's where the Patriots pick. I don't see that right now. And so I'm thinking, well, all right, I'm still going to go after the free agent market and see what we can come up with. Maybe we can come up with a lineman. Maybe we can come up with that wide receiver and then go for, the best athlete available. Or maybe you just look for extra depth on the line. This is 2 years in a row, Sam, 2 years in a row that there has been a glaring need on the offensive front, and they have yet really to address it. And the moves they made last year were woefully underwhelming. That has to be a priority.
Yeah, that's a concern too. Because a lot of people, are bashing on the Patriots, for not getting a lineman, last offseason. But they're, in my opinion, I'm not an expert. I don't really dive too deep into the offensive linemen. But it seems like there really wasn't, a ton of good options really available in free agency or for trade. And I appreciate you answering my question. I just have one small thing kind of off that, and
Sure.
I'll be brief.
Yeah.
So obviously, the options we have to make additions to our offensive line are limited by what's available, right? In the draft, free agency, trade, whatever. But if you personally had a choice, would you rather get a lineman who's better at pass blocking or rush blocking, or would you kind of try to find one in the middle? Again, if you had the personal choice, regardless of the available options.
Well, I'm going to
want to hear.
Sure, no problem, Sam. I look. That's sort of like picking your poison. I mean, you got to find somebody that's got to be adept at both. I don't know that you can do, have somebody who's just adept at pass blocking, but be a lousy run blocker and be effective in today's NFL. I'm going to look at the measurables. I'm going to look at the metrics. I want a guy that's got, longer arms. I want a guy that's got quick feet. And if he doesn't have as long arms, he better have quick feet. You know what I'm saying? So I guess to me, if you're looking at a tackle, I'd probably favor pass blocking over run blocking. But I know to a man, every offensive lineman I've ever known, and I've been very, very good friends for a long time with Pete Brock, who many know, was on the Super Bowl 20 team for the Patriots as starting center, playing alongside John Hanna. He's been one of my good friends for a number of years. And we've had this conversation, over beers and, on football philosophy and, in public, scenarios and speaking engagement, all kinds of things. What would you rather do if you're an offensive lineman? And he looks at me every time like I've got 3 heads. He said, if you're an offensive lineman, you'd much rather run block than pass block, because when you run block, you're the one creating the contact. You're the one with the mission at hand. You're the one that knows which way the play is going to go. When you're in pass block, you're backpedaling. You don't know what the defensive lineman is going to do in front of you. You don't know what kind of a stunt he's going to make. You don't even know if he's going to come right at you and bull rush you and try to, put you down on the ground. And then again, are you in the way of the running back based on what play is called? You'd much rather be a run blocker. So most offensive linemen, the really good ones, are really good already at run blocking. I just don't think a guy can be an effective offensive lineman in today's NFL without already being an adequate, if not good, run blocker. And that's why you see so many defensive fronts largely, playing, two-gap with major size, the 320, 30, 40-pound guys, nose tackle as opposed to defensive tackle. You see a lot of these these gapping guys because they're just trying to take up space and let their linebackers and ends make plays. And it's harder for the run blockers who are already good to clear those guys out of the way, literally because of a size factor. I mean, it's just physics more than anything else. So I kind of think that, run blocking has to be a given. Pass blocking, elite pass blocking is something that can be developed if you've got the right tools.
All right, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. And, thanks again for taking the time to explain that. I'll let you get back to the podcast now. Thank you.
No worries. Appreciate you, Sam. Thanks. I'm not ever sure how to take those because, now that, Sam, and I think he meant well, but now that, Sam has, heard my answer, I wonder if he's, sitting at home shaking his head saying, God, that guy knows nothing. I mean, look, I've covered football for a long time. I've covered the NFL for better than 40 years. I can only tell you what I've observed. I can only tell you what, linemen tell me, what defensive linemen tell me, what coaches tell me. And there are a lot of smarter people than I am, and I don't think I'm an idiot about football, but, but I don't pretend to know everything, okay? I'm always open to, suggestions, criticism, constructive criticism, whatever it might be. And I find sometimes the modern day, football technology fascinating. And so, I love, listening sometimes to hear guys like Evan talk because Evan is so into it and he's up on the latest stuff. And it's because that's his full-time job. And so I'm totally ensconced by that stuff. I think in another lifetime, I would have been a coach. I think I could have been a coach. I think I would have enjoyed being a coach, even with all the pitfalls, because the competition is such that I think it would have been something for me to jump into. I wished I had been talented enough to play. I stopped playing football, right before high school because guys started getting bigger than me. And it was just, like I said, it's a matter of physics. I decided I had a better jump shot than I had the ability to, catch a ball or knock a ball away. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Doesn't mean you can't know something about football. Look at Evan, 5'0", weighs 100 and nothing, and yet he knows a lot about football, right? That's what they used to say about me too. So, at any rate, there it is on the table. We'll see if it develops from this point forward. Let me get to Kendall in North Carolina. Hey, Kendall, you're in the playbook.
Hey, what's going on, John?
How you doing, Kendall?
All right. Enjoying this North Carolina weather right now. So,
Dude,
like it's going to storm.
So what's the temp outside?
I think it's, hold on, give me a good question. I think it's 1 second. It's 70 degrees right now.
Come on. All right. Well, rub it in.
You come in North Carolina also?
Yeah, as much as I can. It's usually about once or twice a year, and a lot of it is basketball related for me, just because of my college basketball duties. But it depends. Sometimes Charlotte, sometimes Greensboro, sometimes Winston-Salem. What else? What else has been big lately? Those have been the three. Those are the three main areas that I usually get to.
Yeah, I'm close to Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. Well, I actually enjoy Raleigh, and I like the NC State campus in Raleigh too, so that's good.
Yeah, it's real nice. My question is, I hear a lot of people talking about, the Week 18 game against the Bills. They might could rest their starters, but ain't they still trying to get the number 2 seed too? I don't think they've officially shored that up yet. Ain't Pittsburgh right on their tails for that?
Yeah.
So
no,
that's 2 home games.
Yeah, that's true, and we won't know for sure until we get to that point. Because it depends on what Kansas City does. If the Chiefs, let's say they split the next 2. Let's just say they go 1-1 in the last 2. All right. So then I fully expect the Bills to field a reputable roster in that last game, because if the Bills win and the Chiefs lose, then the Bills could still swipe the number 1 seed. Now, that being said, if the Chiefs win their next two, or if the Chiefs lose their next two.
So let's just say the Chiefs beat the Texans on Saturday, then the Chiefs will have to lose the last two games.
That's
which
true.
Is very unlikely.
That's true
for the Bills to get it one seed.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And
Okay.
so if that happens, then look. Fact of the matter is that right now, when you look at these two rosters, I mean, the one guy that can really do the most damage, to the Patriots has been a guy that's given them trouble even when they had a really good defense a year ago, and that's Josh Allen. So the only guy to me that wouldn't play, that would give the Patriots maybe better than a puncher's chance, would be Josh Allen. So if they sat Josh Allen, then I'd say, all right, the Patriots actually might be in this game for a while. And then if
would you want them to win that final game in terms? Because I know you're just win the game guy. I know that from
I am
you over the past couple of years.
Yes, sir.
Would you want them to win that game, or would you rather them lose it for the draft position? Because I think if you're at 3 right now, I think if they win, I think they'll be more competitive against the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers got a team that'll come into Foxborough and blow us out.
Right.
I think they got a much better chance next week against the Chargers than this week. This game here just looks like a lopsided blowout.
Yeah.
But the week 18 game, if they was to lose that game, if they was to win that game, they're at 3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And assuming what happens with the Giants and the Raiders, we're at 1 and 2. If they win one game, I don't think they'll fall that far. I'm not sure. It just depends. I think they probably go from 3 to 6 or 7 probably.
Yeah.
I don't think they go outside top 10.
Yeah. No, they wouldn't go outside top 10. Look, we won't know until we get there. Last week,
Right.
but what happens between now and then? And look, I'm a guy that, the players don't care where they draft. Players don't care what they get. The players just want to win football games, all right? So I looked at this from strictly a player's point of view and a coach's point of view. And that is, we're going to go out there and try to win a game,
Right.
And so, in other words, if they lost a game, they've got the 3 pick, and if they won the game, they drop to the 5 or whatever it would end up being. I don't know. I really don't know that makes a heck of a lot of difference to the guys that it matters most to down the hallway from where I am right now. So
okay.
I think you got to go play to win the game. That's why you play Herm Edwards, right? You play to win the game, and that's what you got to do. You can't really worry about.
Play to win the game.
Yes, thank you, Coach. You have to. You can't operate any other way. You really can't, Kendall. It's impossible to operate that way because, if you hold guys back thinking you might get a better draft pick, well, something else can end up happening that would end up not getting you that draft pick, or maybe that draft pick turns out to be a bust. And we've seen this team struggle in the draft over the last few years. They have. That's documented. And, I kind of agree with what Doug Kide said earlier in the show. You got to give at least 2 years for a draft class to determine whether or not it was a good one, a bad one, a mediocre one, a good guy, a bad guy, a bust, a star. You got to give it 2 years, all right? And so this is only year 1. The early returns are not trending good, but that doesn't mean that somehow, some way, someone could light a fire under somebody's butt, and then this way they end up contributing in a major factor next year. It could happen. We don't know.
Yeah.
That's why you got to play these games to give these guys an opportunity to develop and learn that. And
one last thing before I get off, John.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Let's just say, best case scenario, the Patriots go out this offseason and they spend some money, like the reports already in the I've seen some reports earlier in the week that we're willing to spend big in free agency. We have a good draft class. We address all our major needs. We check all the boxes this offseason.
All right.
What do you think if we go out and spend money this offseason, and if we have a good draft and the early returns on that is good, if this year the bar was just be competitive, win about 4 or 5 games, and nobody really cares about this year, what is the bar next year? If you do all that, you think it's like, I think you got to be at least a playoff spot or at least 8-9 wins fighting for the playoffs. I think you can't just go spend all that money out and just be a 4 or 5 win team and be acceptable.
I think honestly, Kendall, you are speaking for the majority of Patriot fans in this regard. I think, and my expectation would be similar. If you get, largely plaudits, let's say, and applause, for your draft class. And people think that, you did well, picking up some key free agents to plug, holes in some of the gaps that this team obviously has in talent. And, so in other words, you get a general B+ to an A, A- to an A, report card. You got to be a potential playoff contender. Number of wins.
You have to make it, but at least like on week 18, it should be like a win-in scenario. It shouldn't be what we are right now.
Going into week 18, you should have 8 or 9 wins with a chance to get yourself in the dance.
I think that's the floor for next year. Like, it has to be. It can't be this 4 or 5 win. I don't think the rebuild would be that bad if they address it. I think the draft is key, and I think free agency is key. I don't think it. I mean, some people say we're 4 or 5 years away. I don't know. It shouldn't take that long. There's no way.
I listen. I'm going to join you on that one. I have high expectations. I think.
Definitely by 2026, you should be competing in the playoffs. But I think next year,
no question,
you should be
no question.
You should be 8. If you're not competing by 2026, something's not right.
Next year, should be. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm on your same pathway here.
You should be 8-9. Yeah, 8-9 wins next year. There's no way you should be a 4. You should be at least 8-9 wins if everything goes as planned. Now I know injuries happen and other things happen, and like this past offseason, they tried to get.
And what happens?
They didn't want to come here, right?
And what happens if you don't make any changes and you're the same spot this time next year that they are now, or worse than that? Let's say they make changes and this team hasn't gotten any better. Then what do you do? Then you got to start all over. Then I think you're probably in a position where you got to wipe the slate clean, and that means bringing in new everybody again, and then it's going to be another. Then it's going to be another 2 to 3 years, likely.
That's the worst case, because I think next year you should at least be competing in division. I mean, if you split with I haven't looked at the schedule yet, but I'm sure they're going to have a pretty good schedule.
The schedule won't. We know already the opponents they'll play, but the schedule won't be released until
May. They're playing the NFC South and they're playing the AFC North. So if you split your division opponents next year, you should be competing. You don't have to win division next year, but you shouldn't be where you are. You should split with your division next year. And you're playing the NFC South, you're playing the AFC North or whatnot, you're playing a few more opponents.
Yeah.
You should be. There's no way you should be 8 wins, 8-9 wins. It's the bar. It's the floor next year.
I'm not going to disagree with that. I have high expectations too. I mean, everybody wants to get back to or close at least to the way things were.
Yeah.
And I think that would probably be the way to do it. So you can understand how big an off season this really is. This is everything.
And you got the most important position field. You got quarterback. Now you just got to surround them.
Very true. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Hey, Kendall, thank you. I appreciate you. 855-PATS-500. I'm going to get back to the phones probably in just a little bit, but right now I think we found are we on fishing? Is Flounder out there?
A real woman could stop you from drinking.
It has to be a real big woman.
It's time to go around the NFL with football guru Russell Baxter.
Now on, your name is Flounder.
On Patriots Playbook.
Flounder.
There's no fishing when this guy comes, when he comes to call. Mr. Baxter, how are you today?
Just remember something, John. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
That's very true. I've heard that one many times, but it's also yes.
Classic album title of REO Speedwagon.
Tune a piano, you can't tune a fish. I know. So, we've been talking about, this week largely about, what's been surmised over the course of, I don't know, the last couple of weeks maybe. I mean, but it just magnified itself this last week with really just a lackluster, almost embarrassingly a poor performance against Arizona this past weekend, Russell, and it's Gerard Mayo today had to answer questions about his job security, and of course he's answering the only way that you really would expect him to answer, that he has to answer to the Crafts every day. And he's not been given any indication that anything is any different. I kind of tend to believe that that's probably the case, that I still don't believe that they're ready to pull the trigger on removing him after only 1 year for several reasons, but not the least of which continuity where Drake May is concerned. And I also mean that that's likely that Alex Van Pelt is probably going to remain as offensive coordinator or quarterback's coach simply because of that nurturing, because they should have learned a very hard lesson when it came to, messing around with Mac Jones a few years ago. And we can see that, he's probably never going to climb out of that, now that he's in Jacksonville. So whatever it takes, these last 3 weeks don't look like they're stacking up in New England's favor to gain any positive momentum for the offseason and give anybody a real reason to think positively. So I'm just kind of curious what your viewpoint is from your vantage point, because you cover and follow all 32 teams in the NFL, and what teams who are clearly looking at change do for the last few weeks of a regular season. What should the focus be, and what typically do you see the focus on?
Well, I think the one thing that's very important, at least for me, and of course my vast experience in working with NFL teams, from afar, of course,
yes,
is, to me, watching how your potential free agents play the final 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing, okay? People love to throw out the tank word. Tanking doesn't work.
No.
Okay? This idea that you're going to ask professionals, and John, my background. I've worked with a lot of players, coaches, scouts, GMs, my years with ESPN and 1 year with CBS and just affiliations. It's funny to hear people throw out the tank word, and I don't hear it from the coaches and the players. And I mean, it's almost an insult to their integrity that you think you would go out there and try to lose a game on purpose. And if you're a player who becomes a free agent and you put in a lackluster final month, that's not going to help your cause if you plan on moving on or getting some offers from other clubs. So that's something I definitely watch. Does a team continue to play hard even though the season, you've been eliminated from the playoffs? That's one thing I would look at, especially a young team like this. I mean, listen, the Patriots made some moves earlier in the season, the Matt Judon trade, which they pick up, a third from the Falcons next year and so on. So, I mean, they took some steps and so on. I'm with you to pull the plug on Gerard Mayo after 1 year. The one thing you don't want to get into a habit of is going through coaches and like on a every 1 or 2 year basis. It just doesn't work.
Right.
There's enough changes in an off season by personnel for every team, much less start changing systems and changing coordinators and changing head coaches and so on. I think you really have to fall flat on your face. Listen, when you have to play the Buffalo Bills twice in 3 weeks, it doesn't necessarily lend to a lot of positive.
I'm not sure. Yeah, listen, I think that may have been just, I don't know if that was a cruel joke or if that was payback from, earlier years of success or whatever it was. I know the Buffalo, from a Buffalo standpoint, hey, let's feature, divisional rivalry late in the year when something's liable to be on the line, and certainly it's on the line for Buffalo. The Patriots, they're going to have to figure out a way to survive these games.
Well, listen, go back to when the schedule came out. We heard about Pittsburgh playing 6 of their final 8 games in the division. We heard about the Bears playing 6 of their final 8 games in the division. There was the divisional schedule was very backloaded, even more so. We already know that Week 18 will feature 16 divisional games, but we're now in Week 16, and the Bills and the Patriots haven't played each other this year at all, okay? Meanwhile, I believe it's now 20 of the 48 series have been completed. Only 20. And if you won the first meeting, you won the second meeting 15 out of the 20 times.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Okay? So, and that's kind of standard course. People, we'll talk about how hard it is to beat a team twice in the season or 3 times in the season. Nah, not really.
Yeah.
And it's more times, I've been charting this for about 30 years, and many more times than not, there are sweeps rather than splits. So
is it more a sweep than split if the 2 games are played close together, like these 2 games are going to be, or because they're different teams, really. If you play the first one early and the second one late, I'm just kind of curious if there's any science done on that.
I didn't do a deep dive on that and so on, but we have seen over the years, kind of this sudden having to play each other. I think Pittsburgh and Cleveland played each other twice in 3 weeks this year. One was on a Thursday night, and then the Sunday a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
right. Yeah.
And they wound up splitting.
Yeah.
So I mean, was that because Pittsburgh was on a short week or whatever? There's so many dynamics, and the schedule the way it's set up this year, the final 3 weeks. I mean, we have football this week, John. I have to tell you, football on 4 different days.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Next week, we have football on 5 different days.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. We have football on next week: Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Christmas doubleheader, which is on a Wednesday this year. Mm-hmm. They opted to do that. And if you notice the schedule, the 2 Saturday games are Houston, Kansas City, and Pittsburgh at Baltimore. The reason they did that is because those 4 identical teams are playing on Christmas.
Right.
Houston is playing Baltimore, and Pittsburgh's playing Kansas City.
That's crazy.
So they at least gave them 1 extra day of prep and so on. So, but, I'm a little – when I think about, I've been disappointed with the Patriots this year, and it was almost as if, again, from afar, when they beat Cincinnati this year in week 1, and week 1 is week 1, okay? But it was the style in which they did it. The 16-10 win, they ran the ball, they played good defense against a very good offense. I mean, Cincinnati's problem is not their offense. Mm-hmm. Okay, we see them in these wacky games. Although, listen, they've lost 4 games this year where they scored 33 points. Okay?
Yeah.
And there was you could sense it, and you heard it from some people. Oh, there's that Bill Belichick physical style, relying on defense, grinding it out. You heard all that.
Yeah.
And that's other than beating the Bears in Chicago about a month or so ago, we really haven't seen a lot of that. And so I think in some ways the Patriots are still trying to figure out what kind of football team they want to be.
Yeah.
They certainly seem like they have the young man behind center. But what else do they have to really build on so far? They almost look like it's a weekly experiment.
Yeah.
Watching them play.
Yeah, that's the issue right now, and that's why I think there's a little bit of concern over the way they came out following the bye week, on the road, in playing the Cardinals this past weekend, and there just wasn't a whole lot of rock'em sock'em there. And
no, not at all. Yeah. And listen, Arizona is a much improved team. They're on the verge of doubling their win total from a year ago. Remember, they were 4-13.
Right, and yes, Arizona still technically has a chance to get in, so they had much more to play for. But it just the Patriots, it was more of the same. And with the week off, you'd think you'd see some improvement in some of the areas that have plagued them all year long. And not only did we not see some, we saw none.
Yeah, it was a very surprisingly flat effort.
Yeah.
You're supposed to come back from this off week a little rejuvenated.
Yeah.
Okay. And we saw some wacky football this week. Let's be honest.
Yeah, we did.
One of the things I was pointing out in the food for thought that's sweeping the country. Well, maybe not this country, but maybe some other country. How's this, John? Last week, down the stretch, teams are really fought with them. Home teams last week, 5-11.
Wow.
Okay?
5-11.
Here's my favorite. And if the Pillsbury people are listening, you should be excited. 32 teams played last week, 58 turnovers.
Wow.
41 by the losers, 17 by the winners.
Wow. That's crazy.
I mean, Cincinnati turned over the ball 4 times.
Yeah.
But Tennessee's turned it over 6.
Yeah.
Okay, Denver got 3 interceptions from Bo Nix.
Right.
But I believe Indianapolis had 5 turnovers. Okay? The Browns had 7 points and 6 turnovers.
Yeah.
So it was, hey, now we're rounding into form, huh? Really? They certainly didn't look like that last week. we saw some real craziness as far as ball control and ball security and so on. It surprised me a little because as I'm watching the games and I'm watching the miscues and so on, it was a little strange because this is the time of year you're supposed to be fine tuning. But meanwhile, the good teams are still the good teams, and lo and behold, we have 3 teams that already have 12 wins, another team that's got 13 wins.
Yep.
And meanwhile, we have all these teams with 10 or 11 losses. There's no real middle ground so much.
Right.
So far this year, you're either pretty damn good or less than mediocre.
Yep. That's very true. It looks like this week, all the games that really seem like they're going to have some meaning are early. We got the Thursday game. The Broncos are playing at the Chargers. Of course, the Chargers, the next Patriots opponent after they take on the Bills this weekend. Saturday, Texans and Chiefs. Chiefs have to, win to continue to work toward, home field advantage in the AFC. Steelers playing at the Ravens. Those are 3 pretty good games with a lot riding on them in the outcome.
Yeah, and if Denver wins, Denver's in the playoffs, which, by the way, do you know the last time the Broncos were in the playoffs, John, right off the top of your head?
I'm thinking. Honestly, no.
When they beat the Panthers in the Super Bowl.
That was the last one?
Yeah, that's their last playoff game.
Holy crud. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even Robin would say, holy crud.
Yeah. Holy crud, Batman. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
You talked about the Chiefs. You know what's funny about the Chiefs? They won the Super Bowl last year. They were 11-6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now they're getting ready. If they win this week, they will have won 14 games for the 3rd time in 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's pretty impressive. And
it's very impressive.
And Pittsburgh can win the division on Saturday if they beat the Ravens, which they've had a habit of doing, but. That was a disappointing. Like Pittsburgh almost looked like they conceded the game in the 4th quarter last week.
Mm-hmm.
They had kind of a mid-season surge and questionable punt call by Mike Tomlin, and then it's like. But I also want to give credit to Philadelphia, which is on a major tear right now for a team that was 2-2 and had lost badly to Tampa early. They lost to Atlanta on a Monday night. They squandered the lead and so on, and they found themselves and so on. So you have Philadelphia, you have Detroit, and Minnesota are all 12-2, and nobody's won a division. Think about that. None of those teams have won a division. They're all going to the playoffs, and that can change this week. But that should also tell you something about how top-heavy the NFC is compared to the AFC this year.
Right. So, and again, I have to think this is why the NFL did things the way they did it as far as the scheduling and holding on to or announcing game times and actual dates and everything, because they're trying to build up the suspense here. And it looks like, as much as I might hate to admit it personally, because it's wreaking havoc on my home life, they're doing what they set out to do.
Well, listen, the Saturday games and the Christmas games should tell you something about the NFL and how much the ratings are important to them. I'm not breaking any news there.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
I find it interesting. All 4 teams that are playing Saturday and then Wednesday, the Texans, the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Ravens, were all in the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is 3 of those teams are division champions, and the Steelers were a wild card in 3rd place. That should tell you something about the popularity of the Pittsburgh Steelers,
mm-hmm.
And what a TV draw they are, regardless of what's going on with them. And face it, they're a little bit of a surprise this year. People weren't sure what they were going to be. I heard many pundits, some of the greatest experts in their own minds, forecasting that Mike Tomlin was going to have his first losing season.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to lose 6 straight games and 7 straight games and go 10-11? I don't think so.
No.
So, but again, storied franchise. And by the way, Sunday night, They didn't flex the Cowboys out of Sunday night.
Yep.
Even though they're 6-8.
Yep.
They didn't flex the Cowboys out of Monday night a couple of weeks ago.
Yep. That's right. That's right.
Regardless of, you and I could be in the backfield, and the Cowboys are not going to get flexed out.
Okay.
Now, next week, you'll notice Miami and Cleveland got flexed out.
Yeah.
Okay, and so on. But,
so did the Patriots and the Chargers. Patriots and Chargers got moved to 1 o'clock on Saturday. So
Right. Yeah, and Miami, Miami's certainly a disappointment. But we're forgetting, the Browns went from 11 wins to 11 losses in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
They were a playoff team last year.
Yeah.
They had the coach of the year. They had the comeback player of the year. And now, maybe in 2025 they can vie for both of those awards again.
Yeah, I think they'll probably be a candidate, as it now sounds. Russell, thank you. Listen, Merry Christmas. I'm hoping that we can touch base. I'll let Maureen take care of the nitty-gritty with you for next week. But listen, to you and your family, I hope Santa's good to you. I'll put it that way.
Listen, I just hope Santa can get down the chimney. Okay?
Yeah,
I have my own issues.
It gets harder with age, trust me.
Yes, and girth. So,
yeah.
If that's the stage of our lives, now I know why there's the 12 days of Christmas. If we start at the chimney at the top, it'll give us 12 days to get the hell down to the bottom.
12 days to get to the bottom. Yes, sir. 100%. Thank you, my friend. Talk to you soon.
Merry Christmas to you and yours, John. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir. The one and only @Bax Football Guru on X. Final word today, I'm going to leave right here with our friend Trey in Memphis. Trey, you still there?
Yeah, man, I'm still here, John. Always, man, glad to hear you and the legend. Well, no, he's the great Russell Baxter, and Eldred always call you the legend. So,
well,
don't kill me, Eldred. I'm sorry.
legend in my own mind, Trey. That's all I can tell you. But I wanted to get to you last week, and we ran out of time. So you got today's last word.
It's all good, man. It's all good. It's just John, man. I've been tuning in to the February Mad Show, and then I do. Those guys get very, 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 very interesting takes, man.
Mm-hmm.
And they're beating the franchise they're tearing the franchise to shreds, and they really want to, they want to run Gerard Mayo out of town.
Mm-hmm.
And so does Beetle. Sometimes I just have to I try to tune in to Zolak and Bertrand sometimes, and then I have to turn it off.
Well, I would tell you, Trey, in that regard, most of the talk shows here in Boston are negative for a reason, because that's just kind of the way the fandom here thinks, and I would tell you that goes back to suffering through 86 years of the Red Sox losing, that it was almost like, hey, we're going to lose, and how do we keep from losing again, and we just know we're going to lose. And so I think that mentality has just sort of crept into all of the other teams, all the other professional teams, at least in this area. Where the Patriots are concerned, take the old school way of thinking, which is certainly old school way of thinking now, because the Red Sox obviously ended the curse back in 2004. And we've won, 11, 12 championships since 2001 in New England overall, when you count the Patriots, Super Bowls, and everybody else. The reason that they're like that with the Patriots, because more is expected of this franchise. More is expected of this team. And when, we like to think we know what it takes to be successful as fans. We can see it. We know what makes a good football team.
But, John, if anybody expected 8 wins this year, you have got to be out of your bleeping mind.
Okay.
You have got to be crazy if you expected 7 to 8 wins. Because I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't see it, John.
I thought 5 or 6. Trey, I actually thought 5 or 6 because I didn't think that this team.
I thought 5.
Okay,
5, maybe.
Okay, whatever.
Maybe
We're sort of nitpicking here, but I can tell you, based on the talent that I thought that would be back, and a lot of that talent has underachieved, and some of that talent has been injured. That's why they've fallen short of 5 or 6 wins. Now, I would have considered that a step at least in the right direction. But this team hasn't done that. This team has regressed. It has taken a step backward. So now how do we move forward? And this is part of what, the Boston talk shows and everybody else, this is what they're all talking about now. Some of it is, overtly negative, which, it's easy to go negative because everybody wants to have a fresh take.
Gerard Mayo, they want to run him out of town as early as yesterday.
They do, and I'm telling you.
And I don't think it's fair.
No, it's not.
But John, and I think it's 1,000 pounds of, I haven't said it all year, bull crap.
Yeah, I understand that, and I agree with you on that one, which is why I tend to believe he isn't going to lose his job. Again, I'm going to leave the window open, cracked just a little bit, based on how this team finishes the final 3 weeks of the regular season, which is how we actually started the show today. And
we played the Buffalo Bills the last
that's what. But
my God.
but Trey, if this team gets blown out, 52-10, twice by Buffalo, who's going to stomach that? And I would say you rightfully shouldn't stomach that. And I think then that's where ownership has to do a job of some soul searching here to decide really what is in the best short-term as well as long-term interest. Long-term interest maybe, but long-term interest isn't going to pay the bills and bring fans and put butts in the seats. You got to also think in the short-term interest as well if this team gets blasted the last 3 weeks that it plays. And that's really where we are right now.
Well, John, I've already got set in my mind. Like I said, I'm a diehard Patriots fan, but man, looking at how the Bills been operating and look at how the Patriots been operating, I mean, unless it's defense, unless the guys themselves, because, I'm with Gerard Mayo, man. He can't play for the guys. The only thing they can do is put the game plan in and say, hey, guys, this is what we going to do.
Yeah.
John, in my opinion, looking at this past Sunday, I'm not too optimistic about this defense showing up to play. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you. Like I said, we got some pieces now.
Yeah, but no.
But
I know.
John, oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
So if we're gonna hang out, if the Crafts are gonna look to the last 3 weeks, and that may well just going on this fire mail today. Then.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with that one at all. Trey, I wish you and yours a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas. Our thanks to Evan Lazar, to Russell Baxter, for our who the hell else did we have on today? Thank you, Maddie Clapp. Been nipping at the eggnog too much already? Come on, Rook. What are we doing here? Maddie Glab from Buffalo Bills for reporting here today. A reminder, Bridgestone is the official tire of the New England Patriots. I'm proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. And easy to drink, easy to enjoy, it's Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. My thanks to the one on the other side of the glass, too, in Marine Matt. We're doing everything. Next week, we are going to do a playbook on Christmas Eve. It's going to be at a different time, so that way we can have the afternoon and the evening to be with our families on the holiday here in the States. So, new time next week, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Christmas Eve Day, next Tuesday, right? The 24th. So, we're going to move the show to Tuesday next week. We're going to go from 10 to noon before Patriots Unfiltered. So we're going to be the lead-in to Patriots Unfiltered next Tuesday, where we'll recap the Bills and we'll look ahead to the Chargers. Okay? So there we go. Stay tuned for that. Next week, new time. See you then. Happy holidays.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.